Zimbardo, and we are very glad to have him here in Prague. And I must say that I never saw this room full as today. And I think that as a dean of this faculty, I would wish to have lectures like this every day during our semester. But of course, to have such professors every day here at the faculty. We can work to solve this for the future. I think that for the law faculty, I would like to say really only a few words. I think that we were approached by Michal Žantovský from Václav Residential Library. We were honored and we can offer this lecture hall. And I must say that I personally was convinced from the very beginning that it is a really good idea, because when I saw 5 years ago, 1992 documentary on Stanford prison experiment, I didn't dream to be in faculty and to have Zimbardo here. And today it come true. So let me say that I'm very pleased to host this lecture, and was this yours. Thank you.
Professor Zimbardo, ladies and gentlemen, it is a great pleasure for me to be here today with Professor Zimbardo and our central to the and the Faculty of Law of the Charles University in Prague for enabling us to host this talk here. I don't think I will have to spend much time introducing Professor Zimbardo. He is professor of psychology, emeritus at the Stanford University in California. He became known, as you will all remember, in 1971 for the Stanford prison experiment, about which later he is an author of a number of textbooks and programs, TV programs on psychology, also of books like Effect, the Time Paradigm, Cure, and founder of the Heroic Imagination Project, about which also later. So, without ado, Professor, the floor is yours, and then we will have some talk, and then we will have some questions and answers.
Do the right thing when other people are doing the wrong thing, or more often when they're doing nothing, and also to expose evil in all its many forms as a whistleblower. We believe heroism begins in the mind, begins with thinking about yourself as a hero, thinking of yourself as having an inner hero that we will help express through our lessons, our ways of rethinking the nature of good and evil. Transforming vice into apathy into heroic action. Bystander apathy is what characterizes what's known as the bystander effect. In emergency situations, the more people present, paradoxically, the less likely anyone to help. That's called the bystander effect. It was generated many years ago by the brutal murder in New York City of more than G. Genovese, where many people heard her screams and did nothing. As soon as one person helps, then in seconds, that help is expanding. Our message is, be the one. Be that person who ignores the social norm of doing nothing and creates a new social norm of doing something. that introduction. I'm happy to be here. I first came to Prague in 1969, in the summer before most of you were born. It was internet awareness, and I came to Prague full of excitement, not expecting to see what I saw, Russian tanks on almost every corner, not enough food, people feeling very depressed and very paranoid, but pretty soon that iron curtain lifted and had a wonderful velvet spring. And then I was fortunate to come back again in 2005 to receive the Václav Havel Humanitarian Award and actually spend much time with him. Got to know him as a person as well as a revolutionary and one of my favorite heroes. Last year I received again the Medal of Science from the Czech Academy of Science, and just last week I received honorary doctorate from Charles University. So I am now embedded in Prague, and I'm going to tell you why the future holds an exciting relationship between me, my heroic project, and the people in Prague. So as you know, sadly I'm most famous for creating evil. Because I look like this, not evil. But the reason I did that study, there's two reasons I did that study. As you know, early in the 1960s, Stanley Milgram did a famous study of blind obedience to authority. And in his study, ordinary men and one group of women, not students, ages 20 to 50, 2 of every 3 delivered painful, even lethal shock to somebody they thought was their student. And that was the first study demonstrating the power of social situations to undercut our sense of morality. So someone in authority is telling you to do something that goes against your moral conscience. And when you're not in the situation, everybody says, no, I would not do it. And now you're sitting there, he's in the lab coat, he says, you must go on, you must do it, gives you a role, you are the teacher, the person you're hurting is supposed to be helping is your student. And people got into the role, and 65% of all people in his study went to the full extent, 450 votes. Now, one of the interesting sidelights of that study is little Stanley Milgram was a little Jewish boy. He was my classmate in 1949, 1950 in the Bronx, New York City. We were in the same class. So later, in thinking about his study, I said, it's very rare somebody tells you to harm someone else. You're playing a role. You're a prison guard. And in that role, nobody says you have to harm prisoners, but you know that role is one of power. You have to exercise power over other people. And if you're a prisoner, you know your role is to rebel, but you have limited power, and ultimately the guards can overwhelm you. And so that's what I wanted to do, to see, to add another dimension to the idea of the power of social situations. So Milgram's study and the Stanford Prison study are really bookends illustrating the power of social situations over individual personality. Now, the reason I was interested in creating evil, because most people who study evil are media people, are journalists, are historians, criminologists. They interview people from the Holocaust. They go to prisons, they interview mass murders. I want to see the transformation. I want to start on day one. We know every single person in this room is a good person, has never done anything wrong. The question is, could we flip a switch? Not electric switch, a switch. Can we flip a switch and those people will begin to do evil? The reason I asked that question is when I was a little child, when I was a little child, growing up in New York City, in the South, I was surrounded by evil men who would give children money to do illegal things. Run drugs, steal from stores, if it was a woman to sell her body. And when you're poor, you do things for money. When you're rich and you're a child, you get an allowance. You don't have to do anything, maybe do the dishes or something. But when you're poor, you have to do things which are often, you know, are illegal. And the problem was I had friends who I knew were good boys who did bad things. But me and some other friends resisted. Because money was a temptation. And so I asked myself, when I was a little kid, a basic psychological question. What is the difference between kids who get into temptation and kids who resist it? Well, it's a psychological question, and I couldn't answer until I got to be an old guy, ready to do research on the Stanford Prison experiment and other research I had done earlier. But when I finished that study, for me it was a little demonstration. I never wrote a book about it. I wrote articles, and I filed it away. I started doing research on the psychology of shyness. Shyness as a self-imposed psychological prison, in which if you're a shy person, nobody says you are shy, you say I am shy. And why? Because I'm shy, I can't ask a question. Because I'm shy, I can't ask a girl for a date. Because I'm shy, I can't ask for a raise when I deserve it. So I began to study shyness as a self-imposed silent prison of silent prison. And then I was the first person in 1972 to ever study shyness in adults. Psychologists only study shyness in little children. So I started shyness research center at Stanford, and then we started a shyness clinic to help students who were shy to overcome it. And we were very successful. The shyness clinic I started in 1972 is still operating in California. And it's the only one of its kind in the world. And we are 100% successful. Because we know what shyness is and we know how to turn the switch to turn it off. So for me, the reason to do research of any kind in psychology is to try to understand something fundamental about human nature. And if you think you do understand it, then you ought to be able, when you look at negatives, you ought to be able to design procedures to prevent it, to make it better, or to overcome it. So the shyness clinic is one example of that. Also, the other thing I do is, as my host said, I also write popular books that millions of people read. I wrote a book, Shyness, What It Is, What to Do About It. And the same way recently, I wrote a book on the prison study. I didn't write that until 2008, 1971, 2008. I wanted to share my views on why do good people turn evil. But then I realized I'm spending my life still understanding my problem I had as a little kid. The really interesting question is not why do good people turn evil, but the other side. Is it possible for ordinary people, any of us, to become heroes? Nobody asked that question. Because before I started asking that question, in chapter 16 of the Loser Effect, if you have the book, start chapter 16 and go backwards. Because until I asked that question, most people who are interested in heroes put heroes on a pedestal. Heroes are Agamemnon. Heroes are Achilles. Heroes are Mahatma Gandhi. Heroes are Apollo. Heroes are Martin Luther King. People, Mother Teresa, people who are on a pedestal. I said, that's really nice, but I'm interested in, can you teach anyone the skill and strategy and knowledge to become an ordinary, we call ordinary hero. So that's been my mission in the last 10 years, creating a hero factory, producing, teaching young people how to be social change agents. So, what you saw in that little video, which a student made in Poland, It's something we are about to bring to Prague. So what I have done is I have created a number of lessons in social psychology. All of them organized around basic themes like, why don't people help in emergency? How can we transform people who are passive, bystanders, looking at someone suffering, into people who act as heroes? Heroes act. Heroes who teach you skills and strategies to be a wise and effective action hero. Not a superhero, an ordinary hero, an everyday hero. And our program then is, we develop each of our lessons in great depth. And we give these to teachers, now to businesses, mostly for high school and college. Our program is in the west coast of America. I live in San Francisco near Stanford University. But now, since I travel so much, every place I go, I do a training. I teach people how to use our lessons. So our program is all over Hungary. We have not been to Budapest. It's my third favorite city after San Francisco and Prague. It's wonderful. We are now in 1,300 high schools throughout Hungary, our program. We're all over Poland. My family is Sicilian. We have programs in the ghetto in Palermo. Our program is in Bali, Indonesia, where I'm going to go next week. Our program is in Geelong, Australia. It's about to be in Germany, about to be in Norway. But I talked about this last week when I was here. And there are a number of people in Prague who said, we want your program. We want it in the Jewish Memorial above me. I gave a talk in the medical school. People there said we like it. And so I'm working with a number of people here to say, let's arrange for different groups to license our program. And then the training will be, the best trainers are people I work with in US, because they do training literally almost every day. That is, they teach teachers, they teach business people how to use our material. And they said they're willing to do training in Budapest. People go there, or they're willing to come here. So I'm really excited because this may be the first place where, in every place it's like a single foundation. But here in Prague, it's like 4 or 5 very different groups say, we each want to do it independently. And so that's what I'm really excited about. I think it's happening. So I think with that, I'm going to have a dialogue with my old friend, and then afterwards, questions from you, and then if you want, at the end, selfies.
Thank you so much, and thank you for the talk. You may think that you have 5 or 6 groups around this country looking to do the heroic imagination project. I think that's the library wants to.
All right, let's do it.
All right. Now, what I found, you didn't talk about one, you didn't speak about one part of your work that deals with time, with time perspectives and so on. And I particularly like when you said, I was here in 1969, and short time later you had the Velvet Revolution and you had freedom. Well, short time later was 20 years. Well, that's starting. But let me start with a general question. Back to evil. Where does evil come from? Is it, or a propensity for doing evil? Is it an integral part of what we are? Is it the legacy of the original sin, as some people would believe? Is it a part of our evolutionary equipment, as Konrad Lorenz put in the book on aggression? Or is evil, as some of your studies seem to suggest, contextual, situational, a product of a certain set of conditions? So, which of the...
All of the above.
All of the above.
No, I mean, now that I'm working on the good side, So when I was a child, my parents, my Sunday school teacher said, there's a line between good people like us and bad people like them. And the line was like a safety line. The idea was you couldn't be dragged across, and if you were bad, you were doomed to be there. And every once in a while, I would see it didn't work that way. People I knew who were good ended up doing bad things. People who were identified as bad asked for forgiveness, did penance, and was saved. And so the idea is the line between good and evil is flexible. I mean, any of us can be drawn across that line. So the prison study and the military study just sounds an alarm saying it's easy, relatively easy, to be seduced to do bad things. And it's usually a gradual process. It's like telling a little lie, a bigger lie, hitting somebody gently, then hitting them hard eventually. So it's a process. Now, for most of us, we never do it. But it is, in all of us as children, the idea is, suppose I gave you total power, that you could do anything you want with this power. You could control the universe. So in the olden days, all stories like Frankenstein, like the mad scientist, suddenly somebody had this power, and they always used it to dominate people, to dominate and control. And it's only recently that people say, no, you should use power for good. So superheroes come along, and superheroes suddenly are the creator of cartoonists, each of whom has a special ability, a special talent, and their enemy is always evil of different kind. When I talk to high school students, and sometimes college students like you, they don't like every superhero envies you. Because you have something that no superhero has. Spider-Man, no. Wonder Woman, no. Batman, no. Superman, no. You have a brain. Superheroes do not have a brain. They can fly, they can swim, they can run a building. They don't have a brain. Their brain is the brain of the cartoonist who made them. So now they envy you. And therefore what? What are you going to do? Your brain can make the world better. That's the pressure that I now put on you. So that you now have to use that brain to become not a superhero, but what I'm calling an everyday hero, who every day does an extraordinary deed of kindness and compassion and sharing. So essentially our hero project teaches young people of all ages, but mostly, as I said, middle school, high school, college, how to be a social change agent. So the knowledge in psychology, which is special from any other field, is we have studied, not just me, many of us psychologists have studied. By understanding human nature, we can do things that make human nature shine, makes it better. We can do things that prevent people from drifting to the negative side, that line between good and evil. And so that's what I have devoted really for my whole life.
All right, let's take this one step further. You seem to be implying that people are made to do evil and they can be made to be heroes. You've been quoted on the Czech radio today as saying nobody, yes, today, as saying nobody thinks they committing evil.
Right, that's true.
And I wonder, I mean, the Stanford prison experiment was, and I like that expression, was done with clinically sane students. In my field in psychology, I work with clinically insane people. And there is a difference. And some people seem to be enjoying doing it. I mean, they seem to enjoy hurting other people in the full knowledge that it is evil. So are there two kinds of evils? The situational and what I would say called the pure evil? Or is there such a thing as a pure evil?
I mean, these are profound questions. I mean, understanding evil has been part been forever. In fact, on the other side is there's more evil done in the name of God than in the name of the devil. There's the Crusades, where people say, my religion is the only one, your religion is wrong. And I have to prove that by going forward. In the Stanford prison experiment, as you know, I went to great lengths to pick 24 young college students who were smart, well-educated, from all over America to play the role of prisoner and guard. We gave them a battery of personality tests, 7 different personality tests. We only picked, of all the people who applied, we only picked those who were absolutely normal in every personality dimension. And then we randomly assigned one to be guard, one to be prisoner, one to be guard, one to be prisoner. So at the beginning, there was no difference in the 12 boys who were guards and the 12 boys who were prisoners. Within 2 days, there was no similarity. Every boy who became a guard became totally different than every boy who was in prison. Their whole mentality was organized around power, around dominance, about control, about making the life of prisoners, making prisoners feel powerless and helpless. The prisoner's role was to rebel, and when you did, you got punished. And so, but what happened is, it's 1971. That was the time of the Vietnam War. Students, not only in America, but around the world, were protesting the war, which is immoral and illegal, and in many cases, protesting actively. In college campuses, the university administration also called the police onto the campus to stop student riots. And in one case, in a university called Kent State, the police actually killed students, shot them dead. So now, no students like policemen, no students like prison guards. So in our study, no one wanted to be a guard. So that's really important. So it's not like some people had sadistic impulses and say, oh, you want to be a guard? Oh, nobody wanted to be a guard. We say guards are pigs. We don't want to do it. But they had to do it. Within 2 days, boys who were guards were loving it, enjoying it, having that power. So for me, evil is really about power. Suddenly you have almost absolute power over somebody else. If you're a student, you have intellectual power. If you're really smart, you have more power than somebody else. Your power is a good grade. But now you have power over the life of other people. And then what happened was, for many of the guards, they became creatively sadistic. Now the problem of evil, simplifying is, when you are bored, it motivates you to do things you ordinarily would not, for your enjoyment. So the guards had to work 8 hours, long time. We didn't tell them to do anything. We said, be sure the prisoners are orderly, give them some tasks to do, see they don't escape. They couldn't break cars. But instead now, they had prisoners as their playthings. And one of the guards said later, the prisoners were like our puppets. We were the puppeteers. We could manipulate them, get them to do whatever we wanted. So that's the ultimate dehumanization. You're a college student. By a flip of the coin, you could have been in the prison uniform instead of the guard uniform. And now you're saying these other people, they said people, are our puppets. And we are manipulating them like puppeteers. And so in many cases, in a very short time, people began to play the role of guard, and they became the role. It became the worst, what it means to be a guard, is to dominate, to dehumanize people playing the role of prison. And we saw this around the world. In 2004, American prison guards in a prison in Iraq called Abu Ghraib did the same thing as our guards did. Put bags over prisoners' head, stripped them naked, started simulating sexually degrading acts. Our guards did that in 3 or 4 days. In Abu Ghraib, it took 2 or 3 months. So it's hard to know where that impulse comes. I think in this case, you're put in a situation which you've never been in before. I do have to add one thing is, See, when you have freedom of choice, you choose your life so that every situation is safe, secure. If I want to know what you're going to do tomorrow, I say, what did you do yesterday? Tomorrow's going to be yesterday, play over, slightly. Now, suddenly, your prison guard or your prisoner, the situation totally unfamiliar. There's also other research done by my colleague David Rosen, and suddenly we're going to make you into a mental patient. You're going to pretend to be a mental patient. You don't know what that means. So now when we put you in a totally new situation, the situation influences how you behave rather than your pre-planned vision.
Yeah, well, no, there's no question that what you described and analyzed in your experiments happens in real life. In some situations, it is definitely true that there are physiological and mental limits beyond which the moral integrity of most people breaks down. The stories of the Nazi extermination camps and Stalinist torture chambers and the field W camps and other such situations seem to suggest. And actually, I have a personal, quite strong and shameful memory. I was in the 70s during the communist days. I was in military service. I was drafted into a massive exercise of the Warsaw Pact forces in January. It was minus 20 degrees centigrade, and we didn't get anything to eat for 4 days. And after 4 days of this, I suddenly realized that if I was ordered to burn a village and shoot the people just to get a piece of bread or a warm bed, I was going to do it. And it stayed with me ever since. And it's a very humbling thought, because in our comfortable work we often live with the false certainty that our moral values will protect us from doing evil in any consequence.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing is, like children depend on our parents to create a safe environment for us. And then as we get older, we really depend on our government, on our politicians, on our president, on our legislature. And, at least in Europe, we suffered 10 years of Nazis and 30 or 40 years of communists, and then there was suddenly freedom. But my big concern now is around the world, right-wing totalitarianism / fascism is coming back. We have it in America in the form of a man named Donald Trump, who will lose the election, but millions of Americans will vote for him, even though he's a sexist, he's a racist, he's stupid, but he has power. So people are turning to leaders who have power. Power saying, I do whatever I want. Okay? Many people throughout the world now feel, I don't have enough money. In the communist days, things were bad, but it was equal. Someone compares myself. Now, my life is better, but I'm envious of all the people around me who have a better car, a better house, a better job, more food, dress better. So now there is this inequality. So now around the world, rich people are richer than ever, and poor people are poorer than ever. So the inequality gap in almost every nation around the world is growing year by year. That's creating resentment of the people at the top. So this is what Donald Trump in America is fueling, even though he's a multi-billionaire. That he's getting people saying, give me your power, and then I will get you jobs, and we're going to keep out the migrants, we're going to keep out the Mexicans, whatever. Here's a man who wants to be a politician. I don't know if he's ever visited Europe. I don't know if he's ever visited Asia. I don't know if he's ever visited South America. He knows nothing about or politics. But he's not alone. I just came from Budapest. In Budapest, there's a party called Jobbik. Two of every 10 Hungarians vote that party in. It's a fascist party.
They are anti-Semitic. Now, publicly, they are anti-gay, they are anti-everything. 20% of Hungarian people vote for that party. And so now, Viktor Orban's party says, we're not as bad as them. You know, we are only extremely totalitarian. We control the media, we control everything. And so the Orban party, again, is anti-migrant, anti-Roman people, also anti-gay. Last year, when I came to Budapest, I usually go twice a year for our Euro. As I said, we have our best Euro program day called Euro Square. From the airport in Budapest, there were hundreds of billboards saying, the migrants are coming to take your job. There are no jobs for Hungarians. The migrants are in Hungary. The migrants want to pass through Hungary. But before there was a single migrant on the soil of Hungary, people were afraid. So this is another psychological thing that all tyrants do. They create fear of the other. Fear they're going to take your job, they're going to take your land. And so you create this enormous fear. And now in Poland, if you want to, there it's different. In Poland, it's really old, rural Catholics. So the party is called Law and Justice. It's illegal and unjust. As soon as they got in, elected officials were replaced by politicians. They are now trying to vote against, they want people to vote to limit abortion of all kinds. Doesn't matter to women's rape, doesn't matter to child is form. So this is the old-fashioned Catholics. And if a woman has an abortion, she should go to jail, and the doctor should go to jail. Now, it lost narrowly in the election, but everybody in Poland said, it will think of a way to get around it. And so here we have the example in Poland, and Italy is with right-wing government. In Slovakia, it's moving in that direction. There's some hint that in Czech Republic, there's some problem of the government trying to be nice. So I'm concerned that democracy is on the decline and right-wing totalitarianism, I won't say fashion, is on the rise.
Yes, indeed. I mean, we don't have to be shy about it. In this country, we also have politicians who say that the migrants, of which there are none in this country, they are coming to steal our jobs, take our women, and murder us all. So, you know, we are out there with the rest of them. But let me play the devil's advocate for a little while. You said, and that's true, I mean, all the statistics show that inequality is on the rise around the world, in developed countries in particular, and many popular books have been lately written about it. At the same time, I'm not entirely certain that it is true that while the rich get richer, the poor get poorer. I see most data would show that the poor get richer, except the richer get richer faster than the poor. But in areas like hunger, controlling disease, you know, a vast progress has been made over the last 50 years. So, what does it say about the psychology of how well off am I, and as compared to you?
No, that's right. So it's all in your mind. So, yeah, I mean, objectively, the rich get richer. I mean, they have more money in the bank, they have more stocks, more bonds, they own more land, richer houses. And as you said, poor people are not getting poorer. They are better off now than they were 10 years ago. But it's a psychological perception that is, my life is not as good as it could be. So I'm looking at Donald Trump, I'm looking at millionaires, I'm looking at people driving, you know, big fancy cars. I'm looking at the media, people going to opening of a film festival. I'm looking at young people going to a rock concert. I can't afford that. So it is that perception that my life is not, the quality of my life is not as good as it should be. And I want somebody to make it better. Now, usually, you heard your parents well, and they say, no, we can't make it better. We're limited to the job. And that's then where politicians come in. Politicians say, we will make your life better. We will make America great. We will make Czech Republic great. Whatever it is. And the question is how? How do you? So in America, nobody asks Donald Trump, how will you do it? He's never said once how he will do all these wonderful things. I mean, he's been lecturing, he's been begging. People say, you gotta tell me what is your plan? Give me 5 ways you're gonna make America better for me, not in the world. How is my life? It's a question every citizen says, how will my life be better if we elect you as president? You have to tell me. Give me 5, give me 3 ways. Give me 2 at least. And nobody does that. Everybody's going for slogans. Now, you said at the beginning, I have to go back. Nobody ever does evil. The interesting thing is, in the preface of Mein Kampf, which is Hitler's autobiography, My World, he said, in dealing with the Jewish question, I am doing the Lord's work. So, in your mind, you come up with a justification. So human beings, so all the other research I did earlier is on the psychology of cognitive dissonance. And it says, human beings are not rational. We are rationalizing. We can justify anything. We can come up with a reason why we are doing a bad thing. We can come up with a reason why people like us are doing bad things and make it seem as if it's good. So this is something we have to realize, that this incredible human mind can distort reality, can make something that's clearly evil, can justify it in a way, so people say, by ridding the world of Jews, the vermin, I am doing God's work because God wants Nazis to be the superior Aryan race. And so he convinced himself. Nobody ever says, hey, I really did a bad thing. You always can come up with a reason, a justification for why you did something which other people say is wrong.
All right, let me ask you a question. In the Lucifer Effect, the book that is, I think, partly derived from the Stanford Prison Experiment. Yes. You describe 7 steps on the slippery slope to evil, mindlessly taking the first small step, dehumanization of others, de-individuation of self in anonymity, diffusion of personal responsibility, blind obedience to authority, uncritical conformity to group norms, and passive tolerance of evil through inaction or indifference. So those are the. Okay, I started already. But those are the internal factors that conceivably you can do something about. But then there are also steps that more or less depend on the external factors, the external techniques that have been used to break down the passive resistance to doing evil, such as brainwashing, ideological indoctrination, sleep deprivation, sensory deprivation, collective psychosis, disinformation, torture, etc., etc. Is there any way to defend oneself against those?
It's a lot of bad shit.
I like that.
Many of the things you just said are the worst of good people doing bad things. So there are people whose job is to be a torturer. So in America, we went through this terrible thing. Again, after the terrorist bombing on September 11, 2001, everyone in America was afraid it's going to happen again. So we have to find out who are the suicide bombers, who are the jihadists, who is even before ISIS. So we want to know who they are. And by all means necessary. That's a critical phrase. That means I will do anything I have to get information that I think you have that would save my life and the life of my family. By all means necessary includes torture. And and in the end, it includes killing. We don't give in. And so, Americans began to torture prisoners that had captured, prisoners with Arab backgrounds from Pakistan, from Iraq, from Afghanistan. And psychologists were helping to train the torturers in how to do torture most effectively. It's a big debate, still is a big debate in American psychology about enhancing. See, again, he just had. We have to understand the semantics of evil. So, I'm going to talk to you. I'm going to call it enhanced interrogation. Sometimes interrogation enhanced is pretty. So we have to always listen to what is the language. So in the Milgram study, he's telling you, we want you to help the student learn better. We want you to help the student improve his or her memory. How are you going to help? By hurting. The reality is you're hurting. You're going to be shocked. Your person is screaming. No, you're help. Keep helping. So again, you have to go beyond the words, the semantic thing. What is the reality? How can I be helping if the person I'm helping is screaming, not paying attention, is losing consciousness? How can they be learning their lesson and they can't? So again, it's really critical to understand that people are using language to control. This is George Orwell said this in 1984. People, the ultimate power is the power to control your reality by the language we use. And again, we are in a place here where it's all language. Teachers are coming telling you what they think you should know. And you assume that they're giving you this the best available information, but 1,000 years ago, they were telling you about devils and demons, about infidels. If you were in Salamanca, where the Inquisition started, in the University of Salamanca. During the Nazi era, there were people coming telling the students, in the Communist era, telling the students what they thought you should know, and listen, and you said, here's the truth. So again, it's always, what we're trying to say is, in every situation, you have to do critical thinking analysis. What are they saying? What are the alternatives? What happens if I don't do it? Do I have freedom of thought? Or am I obliged to believe the way the world is because people in authority, people in power are telling me I must? Now, one of my concerns has been that we are trained as children to be blindly obedient to authority. Our parents, our teachers, our religious leaders. But nowhere do we get trained in the difference between authorities that deserve our respect and many authorities who don't. Many authorities deserve defiance. So we just discovered recently that around the world, thousands of Catholic priests have been raping children, Catholic children, girls and boys. And this is in almost every country where the Catholic Church is in. And when it was discovered, they simply moved the priests to a different parish. And when it was discovered at the top level, they simply retired. The children who were taught to be obedient to authority, to their priests, not one of them, 1,000 children, ever told their parents, ever told anyone in Sunday school about this. So for me, this is, and still, Pope Francis said, when he got to be Pope, said, we'll have a big investigation. 2 years ago, nothing. So now the Catholic Church has, even as he's should be the most powerful man, have suppressed that investigation. So again, it's you quote, politics as usual simply means people in power know what to do to keep their power. And sometimes they have to suppress negative information, sometimes they have to excessively promote a little bit of positive.
Admittedly, the let's move to a more positive note to your heroic imagination project. You see, you work with former young delinquents, former gang members, etc. And you teach them to overcome what you were just describing, the bystander effect,
Overcome that shit.
overcome shit, the fixed mindset, social conformity, stereotypes, etc. So what techniques are you using?
I mean, psychology, especially social psychology, cognitive neuropsychology, is more interesting now than ever. So if you're not taking psychology, you should take it. Because it's, when I took psychology, I took introductory psychology in 1950. I was so excited when I answered that question, what's the difference between good people and bad people? And it was boring. It was the most boring course in the universe. I couldn't believe it. It's rats running mazes. It's students learning nonsense syllables. Who cares about a nonsense syllable? I want to learn about sensible syllables. And it was color wheels. I mean, and nothing was connected. And I was a really good student. I got all A's, except in introductory psychology, I got a C. The only C from kindergarten to graduate school. So I said, forget psychology. I majored in sociology, I majored in anthropology. And it wasn't until I was graduating that a friend of mine who was a psychology major said, hey, I need a research partner in my course. I said, no, I hate that stuff. I said, please do me a favor. I said, okay. And suddenly we started to do research, and oh my God, this is what I thought. So I started doing research. And my senior year, I took all psychology, and then graduated from the Yale graduate school, then fell in love. But now psychology is really more interesting than ever. In part, it's because when I was a student, most of the psychologists were men. Actually, old, ugly men. Now, most of psychology is women. Beautiful, young, talented women. And what women have brought in, instead of trying to understand violence, aggression, or peace psychology, family psychology, health psychology is a really new area. So women have brought in really a positive. Women have brought in a focus on what is positive in human nature that should be brought out. Because men used to study the negative, me included. Let's study the negative because then maybe we go. So instead of studying mental illness, women come into psychology, no, we want to study mental health. We want to study meditation. We want to study how to make the human condition better. Start off with, rather than let's study the negative, because maybe we can turn it around. So for me, so now the study of memory is the most interesting ever. I said, when I started, it was literally rats, learning rats running Y mazes to get food. Or students learning memory, nonsense syllables on a memory drum. And now it's neurobiology of memory, it's brain mechanisms of memory, it's people who have exceptional memory, people who've lost their memory. So just that one area is exciting. So within psychology, social psychology, again, is really, really exciting. With a parenthesis, it can never be, again, a study like Milgram or Zimbardo because of ethical issues. In that case, it's sad. Maybe we ask questions later about it. But other than that, psychology is interesting, fascinating, and the idea is to use knowledge to make the world better, rather than use knowledge to experiment, to publish it.
In this country, I was one of the 3 men in a class of 50 people, which was great. And I couldn't fit well enough along, so I ended up in politics, which is full of men only. And that is but I just, before we finish it and turn it over to the people in the room, I want to ask you a little about the time perspective, because it's very intriguing to me. You work with basically six levels or dimensions: two in the past positive and past negative, two in the present hedonism, present fatalism, and two in the future light-oriented time perspective and future transcendent time perspective. Now, and you seem to believe that a lot of past positive, a moderate amount of present hedonism, and a lot of future light goal-oriented time perspective makes for happiness in life and for a good life. Now, it sounds very simple, almost like a hi-fi audio equalizer, but how does it square with other concepts of time perspective, like in gestalt therapy, when you would attach much more retrieval to the present, the here and now, with psychoanalysis, which would attach much more retrieval to the past, or with various versions of transcendentalism, which would favor the transcendental future. So, is there any role for the transcendental future in your theory?
Oh, okay. So, the reason everything I do is autobiographical. So why did I study time perspective? I should say, all my life I'm focusing on power situations over personality. In fact, I always talk about all research in personality predicts almost nothing. The best personality tests correlate with each other. Only 0.2 or 0.3, meaning they explain very little of the variability in behavior. And so here I developed a scale, the Zimbardo Time Perspective Inventory, ZTPI, which is the most valid, the most reliable scale. People are using it around the world, hundreds and hundreds of researchers, many young people in 20 or 30 different countries. And everybody who's using our scale is getting significant results. So if you don't have a dissertation, think about it. Now, as was mentioned, is that when I thought about time perspective, the big zones are past, present, and future. We live our life in one or the other of those, so we switch from one to the other. And the reason I began to study it was, again, growing up poor in the Bronx, my father was often unemployed, and he didn't care. He enjoyed being unemployed because he didn't like to work. He liked to party. He never should have gotten married. We have six people in our family. He was a musician. He could play all instruments. He could sing. He could dance. So he loved to go party. Later on, he would have been a rock and roll guy. But we were poor. We didn't have food. And it was clear to me that the only way out of poverty is to be educated. And to be educated means one thing, to learn about being future-oriented. What I'm going to do today, I'm not going to go play with my friends. I'm going to study, because when I get the exam tomorrow, I'm going to do well in it. And if I do well on the exam, I'm going to get promoted. If I get promoted, I get to the next level. And finally, I graduate, I get a better job. So it was clear, as a little kid, I had to be educated. For my father, I had to go to work. I had to fight my father against studying. He said, don't study, you're going to burn your eyes out. Go play. He said, no, Dad, I have to study, I have to do well. And he never cared about being poor. He's what we call present hedonistic. He enjoyed living in the moment. And that's okay if you're single, that's okay, or if you have a lot of money. But it's not okay if you have a family. The most interesting thing is in 1947, my father, with no education, my father didn't go to high school. In 1947, my father built a television set. Television was invented in the world in 1946, 1 year before. 1947, no one had a television set. My father had a wiring diagram, had somebody teach him how to read it, and made a television set. We showed the World Series, the New York Yankees against the Brooklyn Dodgers. My friends paid 25 coins to see it, and everybody was excited. I said, Dad, okay, you know how to do it now. We can make money, make a lot of money, we can get out of. No. The challenge was to do what? I didn't want to do it again. I couldn't believe it. I said, Dad, what's wrong? You know, so again, it was, so I always was interested in the psychology of time. So how could he live in his present hedonistic zone? How could I live in the future? And my mother, of course, was always talking about the good old days, how it used to be when she was a child, when she was living in Sicily. And so my interest in time, and then in the second prison experiment, was a time distortion. Each guard shift was 8 hours, guards worked 8 hours. Each guard shift was like 1 day. There was no lights, there was no clock, there was no objective time. So each guard shift was like a day. When that shift came, it was like the end of the day. Next shift came on. Not only for the prisoners, but also for these experts to think about, you know, how time is really psychological time is all here. And so I developed the scale, we started doing research. And what we had discovered, not people around the world, said having a balanced time perspective is critical for psychological health. It's critical financially, meaning having a focus on the good things in the past, never the negative. People who live in the negative past are post-traumatic stress disorder. You want to be present hedonistic, but only as a reward for achieving something in the future. Future simply means you live your life to be a good person, so when you die, you go to heaven rather than hell. And only some people in some religions believe that. So, for example, Jews don't believe in heaven or hell. They don't have that concept. So that's irrelevant. So it's really a balanced time perspective called BTP now. Is focus on the positive in the past, never the negative past. Present hedonistic. Present hedonistic means it doesn't pay the price. Nothing ever worked. So Pope people think that. Muslim people think that. But Allah, determines but the future, but not extreme, because you don't want to work hard. So, and there's lots of research that says when we identify people who have that balance, we see all the many things in their life are much better than people who don't have that balance. So I wrote a book called The Time Paradox. And then I wrote another book, I'm Pure, how you use these ideas in therapy.
All right, this would start another very interesting debate. I mean, it's still a debating question whether there is a Jewish concept of hell or not. In Jerusalem, there is a place called Hinnom, and it is by tradition the entrance to hell. So yeah, they think of something, but they don't have strong ideas about afterlife. You're right about that.
I should say one,
When you finish.
Okay, one thing is, I call my book The Lucifer Effect. Why? Who was Lucifer? Lucifer was God's favorite angel. This is mythical history. Lucifer means loose light, lucidity. So Lucifer is the bearer of light, of wisdom. And so he was the #1 angel of all the angels in the universe. And one day, God decided, he was bored of angels, they always do good things. He said, I'm going to create a mortal person. I'm going to create Adam, my perfect mortal creature. So he told the angels, hey, I got this thing, I got this Adam, I'm creating him, and I want you all honor and honor him. Lucifer and some of the other angels of God doesn't make sense. We are immortal, we live forever. By definition, he's mortal, he's going to die after whatever, some years. And if he's mortal, he's vulnerable to good and evil. We're angels, we're not vulnerable to good and evil. So, Adam should honor us rather than we honor Adam. God said, we made 2 sins. Disobedience to authority, me, who are ultimately like not doing what I asked you to do. And secondly, the sin of pride. And we have a statement, pride goeth before the fall. And so he said, and now you're going to be punished. And so God calls Michael the archangel, all the pictures you see in Catholicism of God of the spear mafia hitman of God. So he comes down, and there's apparently a big cosmic battle. It's Lucifer, Beelzebub, Mammon, all the angels versus Michael and all the angels who were quiet. And of course, Michael wins with the help of God on his side. And so what does God do? He says, because you have sinned, because what you did I'm going to consider sin, I'm going to cast you out of heaven, and I'm going to put you in a place I'm going to call hell. God created hell to put the fallen angels. So initially, it was a conceptual place, and then over time, might get a real place somewhere down there. And then, at first, it was just filled with fallen angels. And then also, any later mortal, after Adam disobeyed God, then any fallen. Now, how did Lucifer do? What did Lucifer do to demonstrate to God that Lucifer was right about Adam and God was wrong? He went to the Garden of Eden in the form of a serpent. He first got Eve to eat the apple from the tree of knowledge that was forbidden. You remember this one? And then the serpent, who was Lucifer in disguise, got Eve to persuade Adam to also take a bite. The moment Adam bit the apple, he proved that Lucifer was right and God was wrong. That Adam was corrupt. That Adam was capable of sin against God. Because God said, "You do anything, you can't eat fruit of the tree." At that moment, what should have God done? He should have said, "Lucifer, I made a mistake. I'm going to shut down hell. There's no more business. I want you guys to come back and start over." Think about it. He didn't take a course in psychology and conflict resolution. Had he done that, the whole thing, if you know hell, if you know evil, everybody would be happy, and give Adam a second chance, or say, switch from apples to bananas or something.
And we would all live in paradise ever after. All right, over to you guys. Who wants to go fast? And I will ask you to introduce yourselves and how you are.
So I'm here actually as Mike. My name is Maxim, and first of all, thank you very much for sharing so many insights with us. I wanted to ask you a question. What's your perspective on aid and help of technology in helping us to become heroes? For example, technology that will help people in emergency situations, or help people to become heroes in such situations.
I don't know what you're talking about. Say a little more, what kind of technology? I mean, give me an example of what you mean as a kind of technology.
So an example, a system that guides you to the nearest fire extinguisher or to the nearest safe exit.
Yeah. So essentially, it's that's primitive technology. It's like heroes try to do good in emergencies. So if there was a fire, what would we do? We would all go to the exit we came in on. We would all regress like children. And if that exit was there and there, many people would be killed, trampled, because you can't get to that exit. So a hero would say, stop, and say, single line. Everybody will make it. So technology helps us. We have exit sign, flashing, fire sign, Now, there's another kind of technology that I've been arguing against. It's video game technology. So the idea is video games are newest technology, which is many young men around the world are becoming obsessed with playing video games. Video games teach you complex cognitive motor skills, shooting down the enemy. I wrote a book called Man Interrupted, someplace called Man Disconnected. It says young men around the world are becoming addicted to playing video games, and they would rather play video games than anything in the universe. Rather do with friends, with girlfriends. Many of them play video games 6, 7, 8, 10, 15 hours a day. 7 days. Nothing wrong with video games in moderation, except video games you do in social isolation. You're in your room alone. So what are all the things you're not doing if you're playing video games, say only 10 hours every day? You're not exercising, you're not talking to friends, you're not socializing, you're not doing anything creative, you're not reading, you're not writing, you're not doing the homework. You're getting obese, you're sitting eating junk food. And then the newest thing is, in almost every country around the world except Iran and China, is freely available pornography. So the break in playing video games, press the other button, and up comes 10,000 beautiful dancing women, all of whom want to have sex with you. So you watch a little bit, get masturbate, have orgasm, put it away, go back to video games. So many boys now live in a dual world of playing video games and watching online pornography. And they would rather do that than anything else. They have given up friends, they have given up girlfriends. Kids are starting at age 6 years old watching pornography. There's a study in England that 3 porn sites are among the most visited by children 6 to 14 years old. And so I'm arguing this is a dangerous trend happening in almost every country. It's going to get worse because these are multi-million or billion-dollar industries that compete with each other. Right now, the games are made by men for male value. Video games are dominance, control, competition, and the pornography, dominance, control, objectification of women. So I believe that eventually games and pornography will be made for women because it's a market. But the newest thing that's about to happen within a few months is virtual reality goggles. Google invented goggles, made goggles. It only costs $99. When you put the goggles on, video games, the enemy is not on the screen, the enemy is here. When you put the goggles on, the beautiful naked women are not there. They can't see all around you. I think young men will never take the goggles off. And they will live in virtual reality until they die. And that's an alarm sound.
Well, think about it, guys.
You are.
Good afternoon. My name is Martin. It's very much pleasure to be here in person and seeing the program to work huge.
Can you try to do something with the mic so that probably says Professor and he's probably right.
I can speak now loud.
Okay.
So my question goes to the phenomenon of
Now it's working. The seduction by the power. And I ask because what I see is that the basis of this being able to get seducted by the power is the lack of feeling that I have the power about my life. I have the power to control fully my life. Now I'm totally responsible for that. And I'm not responsible for anyone else's life, but I'm responsible for mine. And my question is, do you think we're working on self-worth, self-esteem, being responsible for one's life helps to prevent this seduction by power?
That's a great question. We all have to be responsible for our actions, morally responsible. But, and we want to lead a good moral life. My hero project goes one step further. It says, I am responsible to you. It means in every situation that I, Zimbardo, go in, I suppress egocentrism. I never ask, will people think I'm smart? Will people think I'm funny? Will girls think I'm sexy? I don't ask that question. I go in saying, who can I make feel special? Who can I give a compliment to? Who can I ask some personal question that makes them feel that with Zimbardo, I identify with me? And so, in my hero program, it's that everybody should be sociocentric, not egocentric. Egocentrism is the enemy of health. If I'm focused on me, I'm not noticing somebody's lying bleeding. I'm not noticing somebody sitting crying. I'm not noticing somebody's in the corner, everybody's talking to me, shocked. So again, we promote the whole idea of we want to go away from me and I to we and us. So the language. So again, it's the moment I say I want to, we, that's egocentrism. It's always what can we do? What could we do? So again, I promote the notion of a hero squad. That if something's not working in your family, in your school, when you challenge as an individual, the powers could dismiss you. You know, you're a fanatic. Once you have three people and say, sir, we believe that. Now, point of view. It has to be recognized as a point of view, as in a democracy at least. So what we teach is not only, how to be an effective bystander, how to change fixed mindset into growth mindset. We teach these kinds of things. How to change your basic perception away from egocentrism to sociocentrism. As we say, heroes are people who every day practice the social habits of heroism. Being kind, being caring, doing good deeds, being social change agents. And that's our orientation. Rick, can you give me a question?
The ladies on the...
Here, upstairs.
Yes.
Okay, hello, I'm Regina. And thank you for a lovely presentation. I really enjoyed it. And I have actually two questions. It's okay. First, first you said that you think that the situation somehow influences the behavior. And don't you think that it might mean that even, for example, mental asylums may empower the mental health problems in those people who are in those asylums? And my second question is if you think that coming to power always means that you become somehow evil, and do you think that you are immune to evil? So that's it.
Okay, but there's been a lot of criticism starting in the late 60s of the last century of mental health institutions and of some of the effects on behavior of the patients being found out not to be the results of the disease itself, but the results of hospitalization, and that led to a great liberalization of the mental health system, to the introduction of various halfway houses and after hospitalization institutions, etc., etc. There is a great movie having something to do with this country. It's called One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. It's, I think, a 6th Oscar movie made by the Czech director Milos Forman, and it's about a crazy nurse obsessed with power in a mental institution and what it can do to the patients as a group, and also how it can produce a hero.
Yeah, I recommend that. It's a wonderful movie. One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Cuckoo is like a weird bird. And, many mental institutions would be referred to as a cuckoo's nest. It's the bird that flew over the cuckoo's nest looking in. Now, the other part of your question, say again.
If
you have to have power. I mean, little children feel that, what it means to go from a child to adult is you should have more and more power over your life. What it means to be in a democracy is you have the power of a vote. What it means to have for me, the most important knowledge, the most important power is power of knowledge. It's using your mind. The reason we should be educated, education gives you new power to think differently, think better and different than your parents ever did, anybody who went before you. Knowledge makes you have creative ideas that nobody ever had. We give people a Nobel Prize because they had an idea that nobody in the world before them ever had that idea in that same way. So knowledge, power doesn't necessarily corrupt. I think it's when it's used for selfish gain, and using your power to make you obey me. So again, parents, as I said earlier, not all parents deserve our respect. There's some parents who insist that their children obey them, really blindly. As you said in the church. So you need some degree of power in order to make anything work. You need electrical power to make your radio work. You need power makes the world go round. Only we're talking about human power and how much is enough, how much is too much. Those are questions that those are fundamental questions about human nature.
And if I may add a political note, you probably all know the saying, I think it was Lord Acton first coined it, all power corrupts, absolute power corrupts, absolutely. And that's the sobering note, and that's why in democratic political systems, there is a premium on limitation of power, on self-limitation, on checks and balances, on things that prevent the power-crazy individuals from getting all power.
We have here 2 questions to be upstairs on the right side. Here.
All right.
Hello, my name is Vladimir. My name is Vladimir. My name is Vladimir. Can you give me I'd like to know whether there is a specific personality or temperament which decrease probability to have an individual to a devil, like, I don't know, jealous or individualism or something like that. You understand? How to...
When Stanley Milgram did his research, he asked 40 American psychiatrists what percent of all Americans would switch to 450 volts. They said only 1%, because in every society, 1% of the population are called psychopaths. They're born with a brain defect that they cannot feel guilt, they cannot feel shame, they cannot feel positive emotion seeing someone suffering. In their mind, anybody who would punish someone else, it could only be a psychopath. Now, 2 problems. One, not all psychopaths become criminals. You're born with a tendency, a push toward nature, not to feel guilt. But if you're brought up in a loving, caring environment, if you're brought up without having a lot of power, you can live your whole life never doing anything wrong. But the idea is suddenly if you were brought up where you were given a lot of power or you were in an abusing environment and you're going to use this negative power so psychopaths would be negative power. in the Melbourne study, they said 1%. So if 1% is personality, in Milgram was 65%. So all the rest was the situation, was the role playing, was the teacher, was the obedience. So again, I'm saying it's almost always better to say, let me try to understand what the situation is bringing out of me, rather than what am I bringing into the situation. Because in general, the social situation will predict better than personality measures.
So there are two questions on that.
Another one.
Thank you.
Hello, can you hear me? Jan Seliček from this faculty. I want to get back to the egocentrism, if I can. I feel in kind of a way that even being hero is being egoistic, because you get the win, you get everything good for yourself because you feel good that you are the hero. So what's the bad thing of being egoistic?
Oh, no, I mean, when you do a heroic deed, it should make you feel good. But our ordinary heroes are monocyclical. They say, I did more than you. And they say, what makes me special, by helping you, it makes me feel good. Because you smile, you say thank you, and what I did, I will do nothing for you, I will do for him. And so, ordinary heroes, in our program we say, you're a hero in training. Meaning every day, in every way, in some way, you're going to do something that makes the world better. Person by person, act by act. And you should feel good about it. Other people say, thank you. I do something nice to you, makes your life better, so thank you. For example, when I was in Hungary 2 weeks ago, Budapest, I had a number of famous celebrities, singers, ballerina, comedy writer, comedian. Each of them said, I'm an ambassador of Hero Square, and for the next 30 days, I will do a chow. One of them said, I'm going to, if I'm in a bus, singer, I'll stand up and say, I'd like to sing a little folk song for you, to make the bus ride less boring. And each one said, I'm saying, which normally I would not, only because it's awkward, it's embarrassing. We don't make social connection, not because you don't know how. It also feels awkward. So again, I say, every day this month, I'm going to give someone a compliment. Why don't we do it all the time? I have had students come to me and say, taking your course in psychology changed my whole life. I was doing poorly, I took your course, I majored in psychology, I'm the head of a mental health clinic. That was 40 years ago. I said, why did you wait 40 years to tell me? Students don't give teachers compliments. We don't give each other compliments. So why is it? It just feels awkward. It feels, so essentially it becomes a habit. I mean, you start giving compliments every day. You say, what a beautiful scarf. That really makes you look even prettier. Or that jacket is really dashing. I wish I had one of mine. So just you start to exert something about you. I really like that hair. It really rocks. And then you go from the external to the personal. How you talk and say, I really like what you said about, or I like the way you phrase it. So you go from external compliments, about how you look, to personal about something you said. And once you do it automatically, and I make a challenge, I would do one a day, people on the bus, on the elevator. Now the new challenge I said is, in San Francisco, which is the most wonderful city in the world. I grew up in New York, I lived in San Francisco 40 years. You must visit. It's a wonderful city. It's the most European city in America. The only problem we have a huge problem with homeless people. We have 7,000 or more people living on the street. sometimes whole families, many old people, many veterans, many people mentally ill. And many of them are begging. And after a while, people stop giving, so they sit here with a handout or a handout, and people pass them by. So I said, my challenge is, every day, I will make some homeless person feel special. I'm going to make them feel as if they're a person without a home. Once you say homeless person, it's like a migrant. A migrant is what? A person who is migrating. Once you put them in the category of migrant, homeless, you treat them different. So now what it means is, I'm going to decide each morning, I'm going to give $1. Usually I get 50. I'm going to get $100. And I'm going to decide to give it probably to an older person, older like me. But what I'm going to do before I give it to them, I'm going to go over and say, hi, I'm Phil Zimbardo. And put your hand up there. What's your name? I go, I'm so sorry, you're down on your luck. I wish I could give you more. This is $1. I'll come by another day. And I need, sometimes I have tears in them. Literally, even people give money, they're going back to destroy money. So essentially what you're doing is making them feel as if they're a person who's without a home. They didn't grow up as a person without a home. They were mentally ill, they lost their job, they're traveling from some other place, traveling from some part of America which is freezing in the winter, they come to San Francisco, it's not so cold. But that very act takes 1 minute. 1 minute of my time to make somebody feel special in that very little way. It's not, I can just say, hey, here's $1 and walk on. It's saying, I'm a person, you're a person, we are people, and I'm sorry, I'm in luck, kids over here, and about your business. So this is, again, I say this is a challenge I will do when I get home. And I started actually when I was in Budapest, I started doing it there. And I would encourage all of you to do this.
Now, you're all going to hate me, but this is going to be the last question, so.
Sorry, can you hear me? This is a little bit embarrassing. I'm just above you, so there's no way you can see me. But hi, I'm Elizabeth, and I'm definitely not going to hold back on the compliments because Mr. Zimbardo, you were one of the reasons I went to study psychology, actually. So thank you for that very much. And I wanted to ask, basically, I am in my third year right now, and I'm doing my dissertation. And I want to investigate something very relevant to your experiments, but in the opposite direction. What I am trying to look at is whether as a society we can pass certain critical points in our social progress, after which we cannot return back, meaning, for example, if we vote on equality and give women the right to vote, that perhaps a perception or this point of progression in the society is so critical that we can never return back after it. But, well, it's kind of arguing your experiments where the individuals can come back or basically do a social regression in a prison or a situational environment, right? So, regarding your entire research, I wanted to ask you, what do you think about it? Is it possible that our society reaches some critical points after which we cannot return back, we cannot regress anymore, and we basically pass them and that's it?
Great question. That is the important, that's the power of law. So, for years, for decades, centuries, women could not vote. Men were in charge. They said women are too emotional. Women they don't care enough. Women don't know enough about politics. Politics is man's business. It took years. It took many, many women protesting, many women being ridiculed to finally get one nation to have women voting and another nation, and now almost around the world. Maybe not in some Arab nation, but almost every nation has women voting. You can't even imagine. In fact, Europe, in many nations, more women, a greater percentage of women vote than men. But once you make that change, you can't go back. I mean, you can't say, okay, now we're not going to have women anymore. So the power of legislation is it changes the way people do business. I'm going to end with a wonderful story. An incredible hero, a woman who changed the law in America. Until 30, 40 years ago, when you went on a bus or when you went on a train, there was a part of the bus that for colored people only, meaning black people. Black people sit in the back of the bus. They pay the same money as white people. White people sit here, black people sit there. So it's called segregated transportation. And for 100 years, everybody accepted it. But you went on a bus. If you're colored, it's a place where you sit down. One day, a woman in her car said, I'm not going to do it. I refuse. I pay the same money as the white person. I'm going to sit wherever I want. What happened was the bus stopped. The bus driver called the police. They put the woman in prison. They took a picture of her holding a number, 7058. This woman had been a seamstress. She made dresses for rich white women in Atlanta, Georgia. And Atlanta, Georgia was where Martin Luther King had the center of civil rights. So they realized that this woman would be the symbol of civil rights. If the woman who did an ordinary democratic thing to say, my rights should be, if I pay the same as you, I should get the same treatment. And they started a national movement, and the law was changed. The law was changed because this woman had the power to stand up, speak out, and say, I will not do what is expected of me because what is expected of me is wrong. And so there's a case where it's an ordinary hero, ordinary woman. She could have lived her whole life sitting in the back of the bus. And because she said, I don't want to be treated as a second-class citizen. I want to be treated same as women voting. No. I raise a family, I work hard, I do what because I should have equal rights to men. And so these kinds of action, this case by a single woman, the other case was almost always a collective of women, changed the way the world is run. Thank you for the question. And now?
Thank you. I have a compliment to make. I mean, this was not only an honor and a pleasure to meet you. A rewarding experience, and I don't know about you, I think you had a wonderful time. I had a wonderful time. Thank you very much. Professor Zimbardo will now stay on for a little longer, sign books, pictures, take photographs, because he's a real